This is the Get Your Life Project. I'm Ashley Weeks.
My name is Sierra. See nasty.
Then by V.
Hey girl, hey.
Ooh.
I'm Tiffany. Or TLC if you're feeling fancy.
I am. Get my creep on. No, but we are four unstereotypical Black women here talking about taboo topics and issues, questioning everything, trusting no one. Okay? Serious about that. And today we're going to talk about vagina bashing, i.e. vagina shaming.
Ooh, she said the V word.
What?
Can we go into a little swirl?
You want a swirl?
A swirl.
Give it a whirl.
Give it a whirl.
What you want?
You want names of it?
Names.
What do y'all call
What?
vaginas? Pussy.
Cooter?
Vag?
Cunt?
Cunt.
Apparently, you can call it a cum dumpster.
That's nasty.
That is nasty.
I've heard taco. I'm a fan. Like
Love
I don't.
rug.
Hey,
That's nice. I like
that's
that one.
comfy.
That is. A slit.
Like a cut.
Like a slit. Like somebody just like slice.
Oh,
Like that. That sounds a little violent. I don't like that one.
That's not how it happened. That's not how they're made.
well,
It can get dark.
it can.
I think it's a lot of the dark ones are like male driven though. Like a goop chute, a sperm bottle, a cum dumpster.
Yeah, these sound very male oriented.
They sound a cock sock, cock pocket, like that one, penis glove,
Like hot pockets?
like a hot pocket, but like a cock socket though.
I feel like there are women who subscribe to the patriarchy.
They
I think the
are.
subscribers of the
Definitely.
patriarchy is a good way to umbrella
But I
all
think
of
it's
this.
your mind fucked though. Patriarchy is
Yeah.
a different topic, but
But yeah, so vagina bashing or shaming. A woman scent. Sometimes the size of her labia, the flaps. People making fun of these things, pointing out these things. I have a thing where one of my flaps is longer than the other. I used to be very
Thank you for
insecure
that.
about that, but I think I've grown over it.
yeah.
Nobody
Loose
complains.
vaginas. The
Nobody
myth
complains.
of the loose vagina.
Or even like being ashamed of your period, like I gotta hide my pad and my purse, so when I go to the bathroom, so nobody know I'm on my period.
I hate
I feel
always
like
having to
even,
check.
Like, the idea, like, I want to have little people one day, and the fear of like childbirth because nobody talks about everything that has to do with that. It's just like, oh, maybe pass adoption. Hey, like,
I mean, the fact that you don't even know what childbirth is like.
Yeah.
People don't talk about childbirth.
people don't talk about anything to do with vagina.
What does it look like? I don't know. Like little handlebars and like a little thing in the middle.
I mean,
What's
what
that?
actually is the vagina?
What part of it?
Is it like all of it, y'all?
They don't know where we
like,
How
pee
many
from.
holes?
It's one hole.
Where do we
guys.
pee?
How many
For
holes
the-
again?
It's one hole. There's one hole.
No, it's not.
The vaginal. Yes, it
Gotta
is.
stay
It's one
together.
hole.
It's two.
One hole.
It's one. That's the vaginal opening, and then it's your urethra. There's a hole. It's little.
But it's like three. It's like actually 3 holes.
Yeah.
Down
Can we say that again so
there
everybody?
are one,
Huh?
Ooh,
three, 3 holes. Okay,
3 holes.
and only one of them is a vagina.
What?
All right.
Say it
That's
ain't
just
so.
a little education from our
A little bit
from our sex positives
little sex
over-
positivity.
over there.
Yeah.
So guys, has anybody ever like said anything about your vagina? Have you ever experienced any form of vagina shaming?
I think just not talking about it. Like a lot of things that are shameful in society, people show that by not talking about it. So the fact that there are like very few conversations about it that happen, and when they do, they are deemed dirty or like uncouth. It's just a sign like, hey, there's this part of your body that controls at least a week out of a month of your life, but it is dirty.
True.
It is a dirty thing. We don't talk about it. We don't say anything to do with it. Like that alone is just like,
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a thing that's like kept quiet. Like we're not really allowed to like talk about. Like it's not public conversation to be like, hey, how's your vagina doing today? You probably wouldn't ask like that, but
yeah.
but
you should.
you should.
Vaginas are important.
Have you ever
Their health
like
matters.
yeah. Have you like ever overheard anybody like bashing or shaming somebody's vagina or
I mean, of course, it's America. So that's all they do, especially men. You'll probably have someone say to you, "Oh, it better smell like water. It don't have no smell in it. If it smell like something, I don't want to put my mouth there." You better be fresh out the shower because it smell like fish. It's fishy. You don't want that. So,
I mean, fish is delicious.
I mean, you don't want.
We're not judging fish, but
normally when a woman's vagina has a very strong fishy smell, there's something medically wrong with her. And people don't talk about that though. Like,
but even if that's the thing, like to be like, hey, like I'm a little concerned, but from like a positive place. That's not what the conversation
like,
is.
no, you funky. Instead of maybe you should go talk to your GYN about that. There might be something.
Or maybe there's like even the question of what does a vagina like smell like? What does a normal like healthy vagina smell like? And
it smells like you, like what you smell like, whatever that is.
And so where do you think we like get these ideas of like how perfect our vaginas like?
I feel like it goes back to how our sexuality is tied to our value as women. Like that idea, even when you're a kid, like I don't know how like other people are being raised and whatever, but the idea of like don't be promiscuous, with the idea that your vagina is your most prized possession. You need to keep it as pure, as clean as possible for like the magic to happen, because apparently no one will want to stay unless that center is magical. So I feel like it starts from there, from that idea of like, oh, what does it mean to be perfect, like in my vagina then, and how can I cultivate that, and the pressures that come with that.
Very rarely do you hear of men giving themselves away. The woman always does, but I'm like, but I still have my vagina. I'm not actually like detaching it and handing it over.
Did you say OA? What's OA?
No, I said away.
Oh, away.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not actually like removing my vagina and like giving it. It's always thought of as like a loss, and in terms of like the shame.
That is true.
Look at all the products they sell to make your vagina smell like anything other than a vagina. There are like feminine washes. There are wipes. There are douches. There are bottles with long, scary tubes that you can stick up there to just suck your pH all up because people tell you that vaginas smell bad and you gotta fix that. I don't see penis washes anywhere. Ever.
Like
Is there a summer's eve for men? I don't see any.
No. I like that you said the whole giving it away. Like to get like the idea of giving it away, even like with virginity or promiscuity, like male promiscuity versus female promiscuity, and like what that's tied to in terms of you're giving this important part of who you are away. I feel like for men it's like a part of them. For women it's like that's your job. Like if you can't perform there, then why are you here? Like, so that idea definitely adds to that.
Yeah, and like I don't know, like I have like I don't know if I ever like had an attachment like to like my vagina in terms of growing up. It was just like there. So like I guess like some of our like notions of it being a thing and then it becoming like criticized like as an object on its like own. I mean, I guess my question is like, when do you like sort of learn, how to like love that or own that or become appreciative of that thing, if you ever?
I feel like we discover our vaginas very young, and I don't think people often talk about that, and I don't know if it doesn't necessarily come from your family either. I think it's just something that you have to discover on your own. I know for myself, I was relatively young when I realized what's going on down there. I was maybe like 5, where I consciously remembered noticing something, like sensations and like feelings. I'm like, that feel nice. What's that rubbing on this? What's that? What's going on?
Taking showers and like realizing that beating feels like really nice.
Like, I remember, oh my God, I don't know if this is going to be weird or not, but I'm going to tell everybody anyway. I remember being like young and being put into a shopping cart, like the little seats. And I'm like, wait, this thing's pressing up against my vagina.
And I think
I like this? I don't know. But like children are very sexual, like, and not in the sense where you're like sexualizing kids, but like
curious.
you're noticing your body at that age, even if it's not in a sexual context. You're just like, oh, this is feeling very nice and stuff like that. And when you're young, you don't talk about it. You can't talk about that. You don't even know what it means.
Yeah, but I feel like naming things, having those conversations with you, even if it's not sexualized, because it's weird. Because everyone is talking about everything else. They're like, oh, does it hurt when you pull your hair, baby? Let me comb it this way.
Right.
Oh, blah blah blah. Did someone hit you that hurt? I'm sorry. Like, oh, when you play blah blah blah, does that hurt your feet? And then they just ignore everything that has to do with that, and it's kind of like, are we never gonna talk about this? And best believe we're talking about it with our friends. Yeah. So it's like annoying.
Eventually when you get older.
Yeah. So
the first name for my vagina was my private parts.
Yeah. Exactly. That's
that was my first name. And it was shameful for someone else to touch it. And I was supposed to tell my family, my mom and dad, if someone touched me there. So it was already a place where I was kind of like, I don't know about this thing. I mean, it seems like it's a no spot. Yeah, so I don't even know if I should be touching it.
But do you like blame parents for that? Like, I feel like that, like, how else is it?
Well, I mean, if we blame our parents, then we gotta blame their parents, and then we blame our whole like generation because it's learned behaviors. Yeah. I think we're just now starting to kind of like undo what was like done to us, but I think I didn't really feel shame about it until I had a period, because suddenly everyone was telling me to wash more often, and I'm making sure that like people can't smell me. I'm like, oh my god, I'm 12. Can all of like 7th grade smell me? Do they know? Like, it just,
I mean,
childbearing age, huh?
Yeah, it kind of goes along with the fact that periods are messy and we don't get to talk about it. And you're supposed to like wrap it up down there, and better hide your like pads or your tampons when you're like going to the bathroom, because you wouldn't want anybody to know that you're like 12 on your period. And then you're sexualized by all the old dirty men.
I know, but see, that's one thing I would bring up is like, you know, that sort of shame, you know, becomes inherent once you like as a kid realize that like, this means like, and it's nothing that you do, but it's something that like society like puts on you, and it's like, oh, you're a woman now, you're of childbearing age, so now you better like, you know, make sure you keep that thing clean, you better not be out here with these boys, like, because you could have like a baby out of wedlock and all this stuff. And so I'm just, I guess with all those pressures and kind of like, I don't know, I guess with all those pressures and trying to like deal with being sexualized already or being seen as an object, you know, when do you start to realize that this is a beautiful part of your body? This is just a curiosity, like that body positivity. And, you know, why don't we get that when we're young?
I feel like it's kind of scary when you think about how, like, you start being aware of this and nothing positive is, I don't know about everybody else, but for me, nothing positive was related to my vagina. It's like, oh, great. Like, you have this thing that makes you a target when you're walking down the street. You have this thing that bleeds and makes you smell.
It's, oh my God, you could have babies, and I'm not finna be a grandmother
right now.
And I will shame you if you come to me with a baby.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, you are walking a certain way, and the boys can see you, and it's not a positive thing. And it's like trying to undo that, and coming from like a Christian background and an African background, and then like being aware of obviously like the liberal talk around that, but still feeling like there is nothing positive that comes out of me being a woman. That definitely eats at someone's psyche, like regardless of who you are. I think that idea of like being a woman and being expected to be confident in that while ignoring the part of you that makes you a woman is ridiculous. And add to that being a woman of color, like I feel like that there's another layer to that as well. Like that whole experience of like, hey, like, you can't talk about that. You can't, because people have been sold because of this. Our bodies have been so sexualized. You can't be proud of that. How dare you?
And you also can't enjoy sex. I mean, look at the way people talk about masturbation amongst women. Even now, people are still kind of like, oh my God, women touch themselves? That's so crazy. Whereas men in like media, in comedies and stand-ups, I'm gonna beat my like it is funny. It is a running joke. It is a running understanding that men touch themselves at all times, and sometimes in public, and everybody's just okay with that. It's no longer taboo. You could do it. Are you? If you stand on a street corner adjusting as a woman, people gonna look at you a little strange. If you a guy, no one questions it.
Because you're supposed to be a lady.
That's that privilege.
But then that goes into like, what does our sexuality even mean? Because it's like, even if you're not actively participating, like even if you're not having sex specifically, but you still have sexuality. Like, how is that? Like, I think men have conversations of like, oh, like, this is what I do to keep my sexuality intact. But for women, it's like, where's the conversation for that? Speaking here from like even religious context and stuff like that, like there's no conversation of you too have a sexuality,
or where does that
where does that go?
Where does that exploration?
Where
does that exploration begin? You sit around and you never activate, and then that's like how you know sexual rape and things that like go quiet, because that's your husband, so that can't really be like a thing, you know? So it's that like autonomy and getting that individualism back and being able to like own that and be like, okay, this is what I want to do in my body. Because for a long time, like my family owned my body, and I was like, oh, like, you know, you think that's yours? That's not yours. That's not your own. So I guess like we can get into some of the top 5 like vagina complaints.
People complain about them, y'all.
Yeah. So yeah. but
yeah, I don't know. I think that's very interesting what you just said about like just the whole idea of like sexuality as a woman, even as a grown-up, even as a sexually active grown-up. Like I know like sex shops and stuff like that. I'm sure Tiffany, the sex positivist, can talk to this. Like the experience of women and men being in the same spaces in a society that's still mostly heterosexual. It's ironic that we don't have spaces where both exist, because it's still like, oh, male sexuality is so different and so much more than
and men have the right to express that whenever, however, and with whoever. I think, speaking of your body not belonging to you, I'm pretty sure my body wasn't mine until like 2 years ago, y'all. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think I spent 21 years of my life not knowing what was happening, not knowing that I could make stuff happen, not knowing I could choose when it happened, because I was just told never to let it happen.
Yeah. You could even personalize that like a little bit more, but yeah, some of the vagina complaints that we see here on Vice, like number 1 is the size of the labia, and then number 2 is like period related problems, flow, cramps, and then number 3 is prevalence of the thrush, UTIs, too much soap up there, burns, tract infections, fear of childbirth, and shitty boyfriends, of course, who tell you that your vagina stinks, and like I don't want to mess with that.
Dump him immediately.
So
it looks like did you know that your vagina could be perfect? There's people think that there's such a thing as
there's no perfect vagina.
But is there a perfect penis? I'm gonna be devil's advocate, y'all, because somebody out there, our one male listener, gonna be like, I
like penis. I think penises can be beautiful. That's just my personal take on it. I've seen some beautiful penises.
I think vaginas are beautiful, just in the essence. People come out of there. Like you came out of one.
I came out of my mom's stomach. So.
Like from your vagina, life comes forth, and the very idea that we're out here trying to regulate it, I find it deeply, deeply problematic.
But I feel like, firstly, in relation to that point, we don't respect the earth, so why would we respect the source of life? Number 2, the size of labia.
Dropping knowledge.
Number 2, the size of labias. Like, we don't really look at our, like, I remember the first time that, like, was like, oh, mirror, oh my God, there is things happening there. That's like 15
You mean you weren't like mirror on the wall?
No, and that was more for like
vagina of them all.
Like, it was for a purpose. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm just interested. It was like, oh, like, I wonder what's happening down there or whatever. But we don't even get to look at them. No one's like, hey, little baby girl, there's something happening down there. Let's see what it looks like.
Speaking of which, like we never named our vaginas though.
Oh no.
Your vagina, if your friend deserves a name.
Yes. So I did name my vagina. I named her Beatrix. Okay, and I met her when I was like 8, in my grandmother's house, in my room. Curious little thing. Found out she does prefer hands. But yeah, and if she could talk, she would probably tell me to like change the batteries on my vibrator and check my email, because she's also very sensible and practical.
Let's see. My vagina is named Sapphire. It's also my superhero name and my stripper name. So it works. I think my vagina, she likes to watch past episodes of Sex and the City. She likes red wine. And I think Sapphire also likes people who are good with her hands. And if my vagina could talk, Sapphire would tell me to use your vibrator. Learn how to use the damn thing. It's cold outside. You're not leaving.
I told you that.
Sierra also told me to learn how to use it. Like a sex positivist who just figured out how to use one. It's crazy, but I blame vagina shame for that. Okay.
I'll blame you. But
it's like has nothing to do.
So no, I don't have a name for my vagina, but she's my best friend. She's my alter ego. She's my worst half. I think of her as a little loose. If we're going to go with the patriarchal term, she's a little bit of a slut. And if she could talk, she would say, "Why are you not full of penises that are really beautiful?" And I like being touched all the time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So mine probably has a name, but I don't know it because she's quiet. She doesn't really have much of a voice.
That's okay.
But she's like a quiet storm, a little on the unstable side. But
tsunami.
Yeah, no, right? Out of control. Tornadoes, wind blowing everywhere, gusts.
Tropical storm Vimba.
Is it slippery, not slimy?
Hey,
I don't know. She's quiet. I let you all know already.
Hey.
So yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
This episode is actually brought to you by us and our vaginas. Our vaginas are also hosting currently.
Hello, I'm Sarah's vagina.
Can we talk about like a vagina is being seen as emotional?
Oh, no.
Does having a vagina
Like
make
crying?
you emotional?
Well, I mean,
Like crying vaginas?
I don't know. I don't know about that one.
Related to like periods and all of that fun stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I think the idea that like the penis is this strong, mighty tower, and a vagina is this thing that's always crying and whining, and
vagina is delicate.
it's a delicate
flower.
feminine flower.
It's a flower.
Let me jab this thing in there, mess up that flower. Like that's kind of.
I mean, there's just so much negativity around a vagina. Like from the get go, like no one sits down and explains to you your vagina, and you need an instruction manual for this thing. It's a lot.
Well, I think you like end up learning out about your vagina, but like inherently, it's like it's already skewed. Like you end up learning the negative things about your vagina. Nobody tells you like the positive things that could come out of it.
Where do you think that comes from?
Religion.
Really?
I blame religion for everything. I do blame religion for everything because I feel like it shapes the way people who think of morals, and I think it shapes the way that people think of women, and I think all of that kind of packed together is the patriarchy, and that's why women aren't seen as sexual beings, because again, I like to go back in the day, back in the day when women could only be one or two things. They could be a housewife or they could be a whore, and that's it. And the husband was not going to go to his wife for his nasty proclivities. He was going to go to his wife to make the babies, and when the babies came out, that's it. And then when he was trying to go get his jollies off and use handcuffs and get spanked and possibly stepped on, that's when he went to his mistress or his whore or whatever, and he went and fucked her in a brothel. So sexuality has always been separated for women, especially if you want to be a good. You can't be both. You can't be both.
Yes, I can.
You can, but you can't. The man said you can't.
It's really radical for a woman to be out here.
But something I think it's very the women who have had, like, if you think about the Grace Jones of the world, like, it's very powerful. Like, I feel when women do embrace their sexuality, that is the threat. Like, if I was the president of the patriarchy, I would be like, oh,
the brotherhood.
We can't have that.
That comes full circle. Like, even like imagine a powerful woman loving herself, taking charge of her body, doing everything that she wants to do. Like, that is the threat. Like, economically too. Like, because you can't just gender like one person and put them like in a box. And I think this like article, specifically in relation to like Black women and how we feel about our vaginas. This article from Time called "Profiting Off of the Myths of Black Women's Bodies." It goes as far as to say, like, for many recently emancipated African Americans, a clean, odor-free body signified personal progress and enterprise and hope for racial assimilation. And that's from a piece called "An Odor of Racism: Vaginal Deodorants in African American Beauty Culture." But yeah, it's just speaking to the question of why do Black women work so hard to keep our vaginas from smelling like we ever bleed, orgasm, sweat, or eat catfish. Like,
have any of you heard the myth that if you eat fruit, it can smell and taste like that? Right?
I've heard that.
Get these some pineapple juice,
because you guys will want to put their face in it if it tastes like pineapple.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like that there is even a requirement for that. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not sitting here like, oh no, you taste like blah blah blah, so I will not be seen half dead with my mouth on that. But I feel like there are more men.
Yeah. So what's the strangest thing a guy ever said about your vagina or vaginas in general?
Yeah.
Someone that you were involved with intimately. Maybe.
I'm not in it. I don't want to talk about it.
I had someone tell me that my clitoris was small.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, I've seen bigger.
To who?
As compared to the other women he's possibly slept with.
How is he paying attention to the?
But if you said something similar about his body parts,
your penis is smaller than the ones that I've.
He would have got up immediately and walked out the door and said nothing. He just would have been like, "I don't need this."
But again, I guess that's going back to the way that a vagina is supposed to look to men. They're supposed to look at it, and they're supposed to have the same exact shape, smell, texture, everything. Clitoris the same, flaps the same, outside hole just as tight as the last girl, whatever it is. Because they can't possibly fathom that we look different.
But even our relationship to our body, like somebody saying that immediately, I don't know about you guys, my gut reaction was like, how dare you? This is my body. Oh no, what is wrong? But like that as relation to him, if you had said the same thing to him, he would have been like, what's wrong with you for thinking that? And I think that's a difference too, where we tie our identities to our sexual,
no one else,
to our identity.
No one else complains about that.
Yeah, which is similar.
It's only you.
It's similar to like, oh, I'm not the problem. You, the woman, are the issue with however you feel. And we're talking very heteronormatively here, but
I think like there's like that extra stigma that comes along with like not trying to just abide by like beauty standards, but then also like doing something as intimate as getting into the bedroom and about to have sex with somebody. You're already like polarized by the fact that like you may not have the right body shape, or like that maybe you're smelling in certain areas. And so for somebody, I remember I used to be really, really nervous about somebody getting really close to my vagina, like for the longest time. And and so it took some time to get like comfortable with that. And I think that just comes, I don't know how different it is for other cultures and other households, but I do think the extra layer of being a black woman and having it passed down that like you got to keep clean, that adds something to it that like I don't think other cultures don't think about.
It's like the fact that we're asked to keep it clean, but the undertone of it of like if it's not a certain way, it's not worthy. If it's not, it has a lot of requirements of the value of the vagina. Like the penis is always valuable. Like I've never heard a parent or someone be like, hey, like, because I have two brothers, and it's never been like, hey, like, your body, if you don't wash, no girl's gonna want to touch you. But that has definitely been some form of that conversation with me of like, if you don't wash yourself, you're gonna have a husband someday, he's not gonna want to put a hand on you because you are dirty. And it's like, where is the equal? It's like, you're not that like you want to be dirty, but it's just like, dang, like, it's only valuable if you keep it a certain way. If you don't, no one's gonna communicate with you, they're just gonna up and go because that's your most valuable part.
It's not equal, I feel like. And I have two brothers, only girl. I feel like just the way that guys and girls develop in my like family was treated differently. It was something to be celebrated. You're like, oh, he has a hair down there now. He has a penis. I don't recall anyone telling like either brother to like, go ahead and hit that real quick with some Dove soap. It was like, oh, you have this thing that's just sprouting out of you. Go forth, touch everyone. And me, they were like, it's dirty, wash 10 times a day, buy your pads in secret, tuck them under your arm, and don't let anyone touch you. I think that like male puberty is like uplifted in general, and women, you like are immediately taught to kind of feel ashamed and to kind of privatize.
It's like the FBI.
I feel like I come from a little bit of a different background just because my mom worked for the health center, and she, was the gonorrhea and chlamydia lady for the city of Philadelphia, which means if you ever had a STD, my mom probably knew about it. But the point of all of that is I think sexuality was viewed a little bit differently in my house, and it was necessarily, like, she talked about the negative connotations around sex. So, like, if you have sex, you could get an STD. She showed us pictures of what these STDs can do to your private parts or whatever, but I feel like the knowledge that you receive about your vagina, I didn't get that from her. So it was never like, oh yeah, it does smell a certain way, don't be ashamed of that smell. Or, oh yeah, you're going to bleed, you might need to clean a little bit more or whatever. It didn't focus on cleanliness. It focused on the sexuality of my vagina and the negative connotations that come around.
I think that goes into like what we're talking about, again, male versus female sexuality. Like us, it's like if you are a sexual female, you will get pregnant or you get STDs. And it's like, I know for me, the conversation, like, which makes sense in a religious household, was like, if you have sex, like, no one's gonna know that the guy you had sex with had sex with you, you are going to be pregnant. You're going to be running around with this big ass stamp that says, I slept with this person.
The stamp that cries.
And in addition, like culturally, there's this thing where like the tete that would be like your father's sister, they examine. So they would examine your body, to see that you are a quote unquote a virgin as much as they can. If there are any signs that you've been, running around, they would tell their family member, like, your wife that you about to marry, we looked at her body and it seems like it's been through a lot. So no. Jeez. So people will literally not marry someone because they're not a virgin or because they have been around or whatever. And that idea as well, where it's like, where is that for males? Like, no one's examining men, no one's asking them.
Because they can't tell.
No, but no one's asking them even questions, like direct questions, because even if they don't examine you, you will sit in a room and people will interrogate you about your sexuality.
Men wearing white dresses.
That was another thing where it's like if you were not a virgin, it was like you're not allowed to wear a white
religion.
Right. It's like you're not allowed to wear a white dress. You have to wear some color so people know that you're not a virgin. And it's like, where is that rhetoric for men? Where is that rhetoric of like your sexuality? If you go this direction, these are the consequences.
I think as far as sexuality, the farthest men can get is like, don't go out like having all these babies. Like, don't. That's maybe the criticism that men get is like, don't be out here fathering all these children. But then at the same time, they don't really have to like care about it or like own up to it to some degree. So like that's
why they invented child support.
There you go.
And sometimes you could just leave.
You can just leave. But I feel like I like to take it back, because when you take it back, you get the basis of all of the bullshit now.
Yeah.
When you look at the way that relationships were formed, again, you're like looking at a man marrying a 12-year-old girl who was just in her childbearing ages and wanting to produce a male heir. You know what I'm like? They kill girls in China. Like they kill baby girls because they don't want girls. They want boys. Boys have always been looked at as being more of a commodity than a woman, because all she can do is have babies and men can make them. We end our childbearing age earlier than a man does. And he can always have children. Women can't.
I think that you could bring that back to like realizing, not seeing yourself as an object, because realizing like the world is that's how they view you. But then when do you stop? When do you learn that like you're not that object? Like,
I like that. And even supporting other women. Like, I feel like what we were saying earlier about like women being forces of the patriarchy. Like, when you hear men, which men will do if they're like, oh, I am oh, you're so elegant. Oh, you are so non-promiscuous. I salute that. And it's like, no, you're not going to talk about other women like that while I'm here. Like, do you say that to your guy friends? Which I have done before, and people might look at you funny and be like, oh, are you saying that because you too? And it's like, I'm not going to sit here and hear you bash another woman for how they choose to take ownership of their sexuality, because it's different from how I choose to take ownership of my sexuality.
If you don't also participate
in the set. Yeah.
And it goes back to the way that men view vaginas and the way that they're taught to view vaginas. It's this sacred, secret thing that they don't know about, because we're always hiding our vaginas from them, from children. Because again, men learn the way to reference a vagina the same way that we do. And if our mothers aren't sitting in a room telling us about our vaginas, then how can you then they're not telling it to your brothers and your own, like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. They're not getting that knowledge either. So then they're looking at it as this thing that's supposed to be used for their pleasure and babies, and that's it. And when you look at it, have you all have heard this? A key that opens many doors.
Oh my God.
Many doors is a great key. A lock that can be opened by many keys is a bad lock. And men say that all the time.
I have heard this from men that I considered open-minded. And again, it goes back to that. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, how does that make any type of sense? Like, do you have a log? Do you open it and you're like, I've logged into your vagina. I've seen that in the past 2 years, blah, blah.
You've been with everybody. Or body count.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. Or even that. Like, I think that idea of like, even using, like, going back to using other women as comparisons to step on other women is ridiculous. That doesn't happen with men. Like, you're not like, oh, this man is better than that man because blah, blah, blah. We typically aren't sitting there picking people based off of body count if you are heterosexual. But I feel like even in today's society, men are still like, like,
it's just a body count.
Yes. So let's go.
So I had somebody ask me about body count. You know, he stood me up too.
Oh,
no. I had one date with this person, and before the second date that didn't happen, he said, what's my body count? I said sex positivity, and he heard, so you fuck everybody. I said, I was like, oh, well, what do you mean? And I said, 7. And he said, oh, okay, that's not that bad. Well, what is? Well, I don't want you to have like porn star numbers. Like don't be running around. Don't be running through. I was like, well, first of all, if I was a porn star, that's my literal job. That's my literal profession. That's how I make money. I should be good at what I do, so I should have like 1 million. My body count number should be 1 million if I'm a porn star. First of all, I'm like, what? What is? Well, somewhere between like 10, but like under 100. I think that's a good number for a woman to have.
Okay, that's nice. I like that you feel that way. Don't give a shit though.
No, I have thoughts because I feel like your quote unquote body count says nothing about your sexual health, your perceptions of sex. I know people who are like, "Oh, I is a virgin," but the things that come out of their mouths related to sexuality are way deeper and nastier than some people who have higher quote unquote body counts. So I'm like, if you are trying to find a prude, you should not necessarily assume that somebody who has a lower body count is that, because that in fact is a lie.
That number doesn't tell you the relationships I have with these people. It doesn't tell you how often I get tested. Doesn't tell you if I have the diseases. We asking all the wrong questions.
Yeah. And your perception doesn't ask what's your philosophy of sexuality. How do you determine your body count? What level of sexual connection did you have with these people? Was it multiple?
What counted as sex? What sexual acts did I have with these people?
It's the assumption that like since you have a high body count, like your vagina must be like out of whack.
Loosey, out of commission, and need a repair.
Not out of commission.
Well, it looks like we've done all the vagina talk. I mean, there could be
there's a million other things.
More.
Our vaginas will still be talking.
They will.
Yeah. They should let us know what they think.
You should. And you know where you can do that at
Get Your Life podcast.
So Get YLP on Twitter and on Instagram.
Hashtag GET.
A project where you get your life.
LYP.
You can also get your vagina.
How do you feel about your vagina? Does it have a name? Are you a guy? Do you be vagina shaming? What do you think about vaginas? Do you like vaginas?
Yep. And an interesting point, have you been vagina shamed by other women? That would be interesting.
Are you going to stop now? Because we told you to stop doing it.
Right.
Does your vagina talk to you? What does it say
to you?
Horny.
Feed me.
Feed me, Seymour.
Awesome.
All right. So we're going to head right into the Get Your Mind Right segment.
This is going to be fun.
This is kind of like a confession booth for whatever you need to get your mind right with.
Therapy.
Oh, it looks like I'm in the
hot people need it.
And I think Vimba nominated herself. So
story time.
What you got to tell us, V?
I'm in the hot seat.
Tribute from District 12.
I feel I'm like the least vocal about sexuality in this group, and there are reasons. So I grew up I'm African. I'm from Zimbabwe. I grew up in a very, very Zimbabwean home. I grew up in a Christian home, and the idea of like sexuality and vaginas and talking about that and whatever spectrum of sexuality you choose to express was not really a conversation. I feel like there is a lot of shame, even when people are not participating in sex. There's some weird balance. It's like, oh, even if you're not sexually active, you still need to be sexy. So it's some weird balance that you have to tread between, oh, don't be sexually active, but still be sexy. Don't be this. And then once you are, it's like, okay, so you're sexually active, hide it. No one should ever know, but still like find some level of like, oh, I'm still a little bit sexy, but I'm not going to tell you to what extent. And like,
I'm still sexy.
Yeah, it's like you can know a little bit, but not the full blend. So like my personal, I guess, confession booth thing is, I guess, my evolving relationship with my sexuality and with my vagina. I think having those conversations, especially wanting to like maybe have daughters in the future, or having a little sister, my sister's 12th, and that idea of like you see puberty happening and nobody's having any kinds of conversations about it is scarier than trying to have those conversations and be like, hey, you know, like, are you having weird feelings down there when people hug you or whatever, which sounds very taboo, but what's the alternative? We have people our age, like I was speaking earlier about how like people claim that like they're not sexually active, but the things they say and do in hiding, it just breeds shame as opposed to you figuring out who you are, developing yourself in that area as well, because that's a part of you. Like sexuality is up there in your personal development and figuring out what do I really think and like what does this mean for me as a person, regardless of what the end of the spectrum you exist in. Your expression of that sexuality is really important, and our conversations around that are important, especially when so many people are sexually active before marriage, even though they are not really talking about it. I think this is time to have those conversations, especially with high rates of like STDs and stuff like that. It's all connected to people feeling like they can't have conversations about their sexuality, about their bodies. So I don't know how you guys feel about that from, I guess, the American perspective and all of that connected, or whatever level of like religious input that your families have had on you and your sexuality.
I mean, I feel like it was generally the same. I don't know. Don't nobody talk about vaginas.
No.
Your mommy don't talk about vaginas. My mommy didn't talk about vaginas in a sense where it's like a sexual, positive thing where you can like enjoy it and people are supposed to like be nice to it and stuff. Like, no, there was never a conversation. So I feel like sexuality plays a part in it, but I don't know if it, means that it's supposed to shape who you are. And I think we let it a lot. I don't know.
That's like interesting, especially because like people, if you do want to go with the wait till marriage, like it's like once you are married, you're supposed to be swinging off chandeliers, and it's like how sway?
But how?
You
Nobody
spent
told
20
me.
some years telling me that this thing.
I didn't know the chandelier swung.
Right, and all of a sudden I'm supposed to fulfill this man's sexual
Well,
needs
yeah.
from A to B,
Yeah.
and no one's ever had a conversation with me about it.
I
so
think a lot goes unsaid, and it takes time before you even like learn to like, that it takes time to learn that you even like want to like pleasure like a dude, or that you even want to be pleasured. Like I think like when I was a kid, I remember like taking showers and like, well, not taking showers, but no, I remember my mom giving me baths, and like I remember sometimes, she would clean that part, and it would always be a very prominent like aspect of like my bath or whatever.
The ritual.
And like I like remember like being like feeling that burn and feeling that tract, and I just remember being kind of like that experience not being so good, and so just knowing that like it's just supposed to be kept clean. And then even when I got my period, I was taught everything that I need to do, but I was like taught to like hide that. Like I remember one time I forgot to like wrap up one of my tissues correctly, and I got like scolded for that. So there was just like a lot of like shame and kind of trauma in terms of like owning like any part of sexuality, because it just wasn't mine at the time. And so I think there's a lot of self-discovery that it takes time before you learn what you like, learn that it's okay to like it, and learn that it's special and it's something to be celebrated, because we don't have those conversations in our household. So.
I mean, from a very young age, I remember my dad. This was before puberty and all of that. Like, oh man, it's going to be crazy when there's two women in the house and they both got their periods, like it's going to be, and it's like, but wait, you're my papa.
You turn into a raging
monster. You think I'm going to go crazy? Like, I'm going to, like, it's something to fear. Like, you think you get your period and you're like, oh my God, I'm just going to lose my mind. Like, all of the sanity that I have now.
It's going to go.
Now, all the clarity that I have at this age.
To my vagina.
As soon as this thing happens, I'm going to turn into this, like, rage monster who can't control themselves, and the men better get out the way.
I know. You're going to be fresh.
Run for the hills. And then we wonder why they're like, what's
things.
that damn deer? What you doing? Because they're taught to think you're weird as soon as you get up. No, I'm same person. Got a little bit of urge, but same person.
Sexual curiosity.
I have a baby, but I'm still the same person.
Ain't nothing but a thing. It's fine.
I can't have a week off.
Man, that's ownership.
I just think it's about unlearning. For me now, I feel like so much of what I was taught, specifically in terms of sexuality, because I like to talk about the sex, was always tied to, well, how does this other person feel about the sex? How they going to feel about having sex with me? And then I'm like, it just took me to get to the point where I want to have sex with me. I'm like, wait a minute now, hold on. Hold on now.
I've been telling her that since I met her.
I'm like, it's radical. I'm like, you can love you too in an intimate way. I'm like, it's odd. You're taught so much to leave your pleasure in the hands of other people. And I'm like, you can show these people a thing or two. I'm like, you need to figure out, I'm out here screaming that people don't ask me what I like. They don't know what I like. They don't know how to do what I like. Well, neither do you, Tiffany. So figure it out.
That is hard. Like, I think that ownership and like, I was speaking on both sides of the spectrum because I know even like on the other side, like in college, people are sitting in a room talking about sex and you don't know what they're talking. That feeling of like, oh, I don't know what they're talking about. There's something wrong with me. Like, what does this mean? So owning both, being like, I want to explore and be able to talk about that. But if you don't want to explore, like, hey, this is my body. This is what I'm choosing to do with it. And like finding comfort in that, it goes back to the ownership. Like, is it really yours? Like, it's not. Finding that space, like I think it's really radical what you just said about like, hey, I want to love me too, and whatever that looks like is okay. Making it happen, right? Being like, all right, cool. It looks like masturbation. It looks like running around getting it. It looks like not touching anyone at all ever. Like,
I kind of had one of the opposite experiences. Like as a young person, I feel like I masturbated more than I wanted to touch other people in some circumstance. So, right, like I learned to pleasure myself, and I'm still trying to learn how to pleasure myself. But it just takes so long. Like sometimes you're like, wait, and your mind gotta be right, and you gotta be really into it. I like porn, I like porn. I do, and I have like a million vibrators, and battery operated ones suck, but so do the rechargeable ones because right in the middle of it might turn off, and it's okay though.
I remember like my first time when I moved out, I like had the time to like kind of just pleasure myself in like my place, and like that was kind of like such a wonderful experience for me because being at home and like having to hide that is like and then being like shamed for it. Like it's a different experience to like be like, okay, I don't need anybody's like approval. This is mine.
That is shocking because like if you think about all your mothers and aunts and whatever, and you're like, really? Not a single one of y'all do this? Not a single one of y'all thought it was an important conversation? Like I know for a fact one of y'all knows what this is. So are we gonna have a conversation about that?
Last time you
had sex with yourself. I don't do that. You don't do that. Never.
No one does that.
I know for me personally, I never had the conversation, but you a little kid.
I want to.
When you're a little kid and you like to get into everything, you might find a couple of things where you'll be like, well, what the hell is this? And then when you become an adult, you're like, whoa, okay. I see what you was getting into. And that's okay. But I feel like the conversation should be had. So I want to pose a question to you guys before, we get down to the nitty gritty. Okay. Do you feel like it is a mother's job to teach her daughter about sexuality and the vagina in general?
I feel like it's ideal because she has one. If I'm going to hear it from anybody, I'm like, I would much rather have learned the things I know now from my mother than through trial and error and trauma. Honestly,
I agree with like that. In addition to relationships and all of that, like I think my mom did a good job of kind of like explaining what it means to be a woman within the context of her life. Right. So I'm not gonna bash that. Yeah. I just feel like for my own kids going forward, I agree with Tiffany. There's some things that I would have rather her sat down with me instead of like, hey mom, this happened to me, and her being like, oh, that happened to me once too, blah, blah. Like just could you have told me this before I went through whatever I went through? Or like, hey mom, I'm dating this person and this is what's happening, and her being like, oh, like there's this one time, like I understand the perspective of like, I learned it my way, you figured it out too the way I did, but I think there's some kind of power if it comes from a parent that you already trust, assuming that relationship is there, being like, hey, like you could take my advice or you could not, but here's what it is. I think parents do play a big role in shaping how you view yourself in general. Mm-hmm. So they have a very powerful role in forming how you view your sexuality. So I agree with Tiff. It would be ideal, but I also don't trump them for them doing whatever they thought was right. They probably went a step further than their parents, to be honest.
Probably, yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think they tried their best. And that looks like so many different things. But I don't know. I'm thinking, but yeah, I do think they do the best that they can, and yeah, they do their best.
Yeah, and I agree. Mm-hmm. I think that parents could definitely do a little bit more to kind of support their child and their sexuality. I mean, I know they might think, oh, if I talk about it, you're going to want to do it more. But I think there's a level to it. I think they can kind of...
I think they taught us what they knew. However, if I ever run into any of y'all babies and they out here feeling how we feel, I'm going to judge them because we know better. So that means we could do better in terms of just this generation. Like, all of our babies should be out here being the most sex positive things you ever did see. I hope
at least that's
a lot of pressure. It is, but if I should have a daughter, I don't want her to feel the way I felt.
Yeah.
Or think things that I'm saying. Because I'm looking at myself and be like, wait a minute. Well, back in my day, we was out here getting it. So my child should be a product of that. We're all a product of circumstance.
Well, yeah, and I think the parents try, like, I think they sometimes go overboard in trying to like prevent those things from happening that happen to them from happening to you. And so sometimes they may overdo it or underdo it in some instances. And I think that's just the fear playing at them. And I guess one way we're remedying that is by having the conversation that we're having now and like knowing that we can take this with us into our future. So yes.
Agree.
Go forth and conquer your vagina.
Please.
Yeah.
There's more to be said, but you can reach out on our Instagram and Twitter to tell us about it.
Yeah. So, friends.
How many of us have them?
I got a lot of them. It's great.